Okay, everybody. I think that I'm live. So let me know as usual. Can you hear me? Okay. I am in the worst, like, I feel like I'm on the worst set imaginable. Like, this is if I had known today, if I had known today that we were going to get the bombshells that we have been getting in the Marilyn Manson situation, I would put a little more, I would put some forethought into getting this situation corrected. And so some of you know who've been watching my stream, the last live stream I did, I am in like getting into week 4 without air conditioning, and it's not for lack of trying, but we just apparently have like the Rubik's cube of all air conditioning systems. There have been like 10 different like groups of guys come out here. But we have one portable air conditioning unit, and it is in this room, and so that's why I'm in this strange room. In case you wonder, these are musical scales. I don't even read music, so it's obviously not mine. But people have asked, "What is that chart behind you?" All right, so most of the stuff in this room, almost all the stuff in this room, not mine. So I have, anyway, bad lighting. Before we talk about Manson, I've got bad lighting here. I was trying to figure out if this looks better or if that looks better. It's a little orangey, yeah, but maybe that's better. I don't know. We'll see. So someone says you need proper air. Well, I know. I mean, I do. Although I have to say, I am starting to adjust to heat. It is interesting how, duh, but it is interesting how if you have to go without something for a while, like you do like miss it less or whatever. But yes, no, it's about to get really hot in Texas where I am. And so, yeah, we're going to get that fixed soon. But at least, we do have one room in the house where I can get away. And so I've basically taken over this room. All right. Huge, huge. I mean, look, I'm kind of almost delirious, to be honest with you. I'm kind of almost delirious because, and thank you for the PayPal donation if you're watching. By the way, if you, instead of super chatting, because of, the YouTube thing and how much it takes and whatever, those of you who feel inspired to donate, if you want to do PayPal and you want to leave a message, I will read it like a super chat. So that's up to you, but all the links are below and everything. And I do have Vanessa as my mod tonight. Thank you. And I think AJ is still, if he wants to, I think he's still designated mod too, but whatever. Okay, so I feel almost kind of delirious because I'm tired because I really did not expect any of this. And so I obviously didn't have any warning that Evan Rachel Wood was going to drop what she dropped, and we'll talk about that. And then also, I did not expect. I know some people think that I'm just like totally tuned in, connected with Manson or with his team, or I'm an arm in his PR machine that he doesn't even really have. No, I mean, like, I did not expect that pushback in the Daily Mail. So, at one point, that story, Manson Fights Back, that came out tonight in the Daily Mail. And it wasn't a direct interview with Manson, but it was an interview with someone close to Manson, and you could tell, you could see that basically a kind of an authorized interview, in the sense that there was a message that I think Manson wanted to get across through this person who was speaking to the Daily Mail. So just like Evan Rachel Wood was leaking stuff to the Blast and getting her distorted message out, and so she attacks him. So yes, finally, Manson needs to start answering back. He does need to fight back, metaphorically. He does. And so I was so heartened to see tonight. I wasn't expecting it, didn't know that was coming either, but I was so heartened to see that he was fighting back and was speaking basically through a representative, and I was really glad to see that it was front page, headline news for a while in the Daily Mail, and you can still find it there. Now, of course, that Daily Mail article, it's got a lot of BS in it too, because a lot of it is about Evan Rachel Wood and what she's alleging, and we'll talk about that. I'll talk about that in a moment. And I'm probably going to be less, by the way, I just want to let you know, probably going to be a little less attentive to the chat than normal for a bit. And so that's just because I really have got some stuff that I want to talk about, because I put out one video today on my channel about Evan Rachel Wood and the custody bombshell, but it wasn't a very long video. There were things that I wanted to get more into, wanted to talk about. Also, I haven't said anything, haven't had an opportunity to say anything about the statement from, Manson's friend or associate or whoever it was who spoke to the Daily Mail. That's been such big news tonight. So anyway, point is, I've got some things I want to get through, and then I'll turn my attention at times to the chat. So for those who don't know, and I don't want to bore everybody, right? If a lot of people know, but I think it'd be helpful just to basically, recount what happened today. I woke up first thing in the morning to Lisa from the Manson cases, or maybe it was Marilyn Manson uncanceled, but someone messaging me this article, and it was an article from the Blast, and probably a lot of you have seen it. I'll go ahead and put it up here and share it just so that you can see. But it was an article from the Blast, and it said that Evan Rachel Wood had relinquished custody of her son to Jamie Bell. And so the son was going to live in LA, or is living in LA now with Jamie Bell. And Evan Rachel Wood did this voluntarily. She did this in order so that her son would be safer with his father than with Evan. Because, dun dun dun, evil, horrible Marilyn Manson lurks in the shadows waiting to pounce. All right. So basically, that was the story that she leaked to the Blast. Now, hold on one second. I'll call it up. I am like terribly slow and annoying about linking to things, and I apologize for that. Some people can just, like Andy, I see, or Tug, or whatever, they just zip across the screen, putting stuff up. And I feel like a grandma. Like I used to look at my grandparents, like when I would try to teach my grandfather how to use the computer, like some of like how laughable that would be. Like there are some people past a certain age, and I'm not being ageist, I'm just saying past a certain age, because they didn't grow up with all this technology. It's just not second nature to them. And I'm sort of in this in-between zone, probably like a lot of you are, right? And so there's some things, I can really pick up on, but I'm not as fast as I'd like to be. But anyway, I feel like sometimes like my granddad when I'm trying to do this the StreamYard stuff. Okay, here we go. Here is the article. So, I'll get that ad off there. I always worry that that's going to be something like embarrassing sometime, I don't know. We'll just move that up. Okay. So it says, Evan Rachel Wood gives up custody of son after alleged Marilyn Manson threats. So what I did not like about this article, it was generally poorly written, and what I didn't like about it is that it really sort of melded or mixed actual court quotes from court documents, from actual court custody documents. So Evan Rachel Wood and Jamie Bell, her ex, father of her child, were in this long-running custody dispute that for a while spilled over into Tennessee. And so there were public court documents from Tennessee that were provided, that I've seen and that I've provided and I've talked to you about, right? But then there was also this the California part of this custody dispute, because that's where Jamie Bell lives, and that's where Evan Rachel Wood lived some of the time, and where the kid was supposed to be, right? Until she took the kid and ran to Tennessee, absconded to Tennessee, and then that's when a lot of this dispute began. But anyway, so there's California custody docs. Those, as I understand, are sealed, don't have access to those. But the Tennessee documents from the Tennessee family court, that's sort of the treasure trove. And that's where I've gotten a lot of the information that I've been talking about for the last month or two when I've talked about this situation. Anyway, my point is this article by The Blast, what they did is they took some direct quotes from court documents, and they took some quotes from the Tennessee documents, and they took some apparently from California documents that have been leaked to them, I'm sure by Evan Rachel Wood. And then they mixed those quotes with a paraphrasing from Evan Rachel Wood herself, right? And so what would happen is, and I'm not going to get into it here, but I'm just saying, as go through it, demonstrate it to you. But I'm just saying that that as a former English professor, when I look at it and I see that they're cutting off certain quoted passages that they can insert their own, paraphrase, or up to a point they'll say Evan believed that, or Jamie Bell and Evan agreed that, and then then they would take a quote, right, from one of these documents. The problem with that is that it becomes very difficult when someone is reading an article like this, especially when they're reading fast. It becomes very difficult for people to see where where interpretation, where Evan's perspective stops, and where the actual what the court documents were actually saying starts. And so, what I'm trying to say to you, I guess, is this: is that what Evans is claiming, and in fact, what that article is saying, is incorrect in a number of ways, or is a kind of a slant. And what we're actually given in terms of actual like facts, quoted from the lawsuits is very, very slim. Okay, I'm just saying that. So right off the bat, there's issues with that in the presentation. And so anyway, my point is that basically I think what Evan was trying to do with this is she was trying to get ahead of this bad news, and she was trying to get ahead of this bad news story, and she was kind of in a tizzy, and I'm going to talk about why in a moment. I talked about it a bit on I know on my channel, but she was in a tizzy, and I think that she thought, okay, I'll get ahead of this. I'll put it out there that I was in fact forced to relinquish custody of my son, but I'll make it sound like it was some kind of voluntary act, like, oh, I'm such a great mother and I don't want my son to be endangered by Marilyn Manson by being around me, and so I'm going to send him to LA where Marilyn Manson lives, to live with his dad. Even though I've been fighting with his dad, Jamie Bell, in court for a long time, trying to keep the child in Tennessee and trying to keep the child away from LA and away from Jamie Bell, and using Marilyn Manson as the reason for that. So you see how it makes no sense, right? But my point is that Evan Rachel Wood, she knew, I think, or she feared that it was going to eventually get out that she had lost custody of her child as a result of her behavior, and this long running custody dispute with Jamie Bell, who by all accounts and the research I've done is a really great guy and a great father, and was a great partner to Evan Rachel Wood. Though she seems to think differently, because she is constantly, slyly, without using his name directly, complaining on her Instagram about narcissistic ex-husbands and having to co-parent with narcissists and abusers and all that. So I've heard, let's just say I've heard through the grapevine, again, I have my sources. I've heard through the grapevine that Evan has a deeply complicated, fraught relationship with Jamie Bell. And look, you can just look at the court documents to see it. If you look at the Tennessee court documents, and I've talked about this in prior videos, Jamie Bell is literally pleading with the courts to do something about Evan Rachel Wood, because he says that, I haven't seen my son in months. She is basically, I'm paraphrasing, but basically he says that she's been feeding these delusions to their son and making their son afraid, to the point where the son told Jamie Bell that he couldn't do anything fun until Brian was locked away. Like, basically the kid is terrorized by his mother over a delusional lie, a hoax. So anyway, the point is, Evan's behavior in all of this, if you really look in at these Tennessee court documents, or you look at this case, it's insane, right? And it's manipulative and it's diabolical. But the fact that she lost custody, the fact that she apparently lost custody, I think she was terrified for that to get out, because it makes her look really bad. Because look, we all know, and Andy Signore said this today on Popcorn Planet, we all know that the court system, particularly California courts, particularly, they're not going to take custody away from the mother. They're not going to do that unless there is something deeply wrong with her. And of course, all you have to do is look at the publicly available Tennessee court documents to see what's wrong with her, right? Jamie Bell keeps pleading, saying, this is damaging. I'm afraid that she's psychologically damaging our son, et cetera, et cetera. He said, at one point, he literally said, I'm pleading with the court. I'm begging the court. But Evan Rachel Wood doesn't want this story to get out, and so she thought, well, I'll get ahead of it, and so I'll acknowledge that I no longer have custody of my son, but I'll spin it as that it was a voluntary, so I'm such a martyr, a voluntary relinquishment for the kid's sake, even though it makes no sense. And so that's what we got in that initial article. But I just don't think people are buying it. I don't think people are buying it. And it was such a, man, you guys, it was such an unforced error. It was such an unforced error. There was no reason for her to do that. There was nothing that would have compelled her to do that, except, and the only things I can think of, I talked about them in the video, the only things I can think of are that, what, a week and a half ago, I said that I had sources, anonymous sources, but credible sources that had told me that Evan Rachel Wood had lost custody of her son. And so that happened, and then Marilyn Manson, as you know, Brian Warner last week, he kind of reemerged on Instagram and on Twitter, and he announced that he's going to have stuff for us to listen to soon, like new music. And he's been out and about and going to concerts, and you see him on, Kat Von D's Instagram and Prayer's Instagram, the group, and some other people, right? And so he's coming out in the sense that he's gonna start living his life. I mean, that's just the sense that I get. That's the message that I'm getting from what I'm seeing. He's gonna come out and he's gonna live his life because it's already been, guess what? It has been over 2 years. I mean, pretty soon we're gonna be getting into 2.5 years, and really longer if you count the amount of time that Evan was holding this thing over his head, like some kind of sword of Damocles, but anyway. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Maybe I'll come back to it later. It's a great analogy, metaphor, whatever. But if you count the time that Evan Rachel Wood, before she announced Marilyn Manson as my abuser, she was spinning this thing out for years. And so even before everything broke in the media and Manson was officially canceled and all those women came out at the same time, right? Even before that, for like what? I hadn't been really following it, but it seems like for a good, what, couple of years, maybe a little less, but for a while, he was getting hassled in the media and by people online. Is Evan talking about you? She's been talking about abuse, and it sure sounds like she's alluding to you. And then finally, he was getting this in interviews and whatever. And also, I think he had been hearing behind the scenes that there was something in the works. It's kind of like Caesar who he no one's telling him that there's a plot, but there's a general sort of uneasiness. He's sort of surrounded by these enemies, and he can sort of feel this rumble, right, in a way, even unconsciously, so even in his dreams or in his wife's dreams or whatever, right? Well, I think that there was probably a lot of anxiety because Manson was kind of hearing about some of this stuff, I would assume. I don't know. So he's had this thing has been a problem for him, and a significant problem for more than 2 years, I would say. But at least, but 2.5 years we've been going at it. And those of us, right, have been defending him. And so I think it's like, okay, I'm gonna live my life now. I've waited around enough. I've waited for this storm to pass. I have waited for the legal system to play out more. I've waited to see if the media are going to come round without me actually speaking up for myself or trying to message things in the media. And I guess I just gave people in society and the media just too much damn credit. And George Gascon and the LASD and all of those people who know the truth, who know it's a hoax and haven't done anything. And the FBI that I know has heard that there's this major actress that was running around out there forging FBI letters and using a real agent's name to pass off in a court custody dispute. Like, there are people who know, but I guess they're just not gonna, I guess they're just not gonna step up. And so, you know what? I'm gonna move on with my life, and things can play out as they will. I don't know that's his attitude. I don't, but that's I think the correct attitude, and I think that's what was signaled by um, the Twitter post and the Instagram post and everything. So that happened, and then tonight, Marilyn Manson, like I said, someone close to him spoke to the Daily Mail. And so you had this big story tonight, and I'm hoping it's going to gain more traction. But you had this big story tonight about, Manson fights back. Here, I'll put it up here if you didn't see it, if you haven't seen it. I'm terrible at this, like I said. Mm. Uh-oh, I just clicked on something I didn't want to click on. Shoot, just a second. Ah! Okay. Here we go. I want to show this to you. Yeah, so I have to say, I just loved seeing this headline, and I love seeing it front and center, Daily Mail. And I just have to say to Evan Rachel Wood, and again, this is not some kind of inside knowledge. I'm just telling you what I see. I think you can expect more of this. I think that Manson, in a manner of speaking, has probably had enough of playing Mr. Passive, Mr. Nice Guy, and going along with this Me Too idea that even if a woman's lying, you're just supposed to lay back and let her beat the hell out of you in the media. I think he's had enough, and so I would expect, Evan, that you are going to have to deal more and more with the reality of being confronted by the truth. And I don't know what forms that will take and how that's going to come out or in what, media outlets or whatever. I'm just telling you, though, that I think that something has been signaled here, that these stories that you're putting out, that they're going to be met with more than an attorney's statement from now on. And that's not a knock at Howard King. I thought all of his statements so far have been great. But I'm just saying, like, it's like enough. And Manson is going to get out there and he's going to make music. And guess what? People are going to buy the music. They're going to consume it in whatever way he can find to get it out there. He's got like 6 million or something, people tell me, downloads on Spotify or something that's like big. It's like, like as if he never left, basically, in terms of the popularity, at least on Spotify. Bigger, more, maybe, with all this. So he's coming back. I think he's coming back in a big way. And I think it's just kind of like, sorry, sweetheart, you can keep this game going if you want to. And you can keep going on, Drew Barrymore and having her, kiss your ass and get down on her knees in front of you and all that. And you can keep this little charade going and whatever. And you can do the juvenile pantomiming, you know, at your karaoke concerts, stuff like that. You can keep that going. But just people have had enough. They've had enough. And so I was really glad. Yeah, I was really glad to see that. And yeah, so let me look at the chat. We're going to have some guests actually tonight. I have one, maybe two guests lined up just for brief spots, just to come on. Excuse me, just to come on. We're not going to do a long marathon live stream or anything like that. Like, I'm going to end it. It's 10:24 my time right now, Central. So I'm going to end it probably around midnight, like in another hour and a half. So I'm just doing a 2-hour live stream. I wasn't planning on it, but like, this is just such big stuff that's happened today, and I have more to say about it. But let me look in the chat here. I don't want to. I should try to respond a little bit. So I'm going to skim. I'm going to kind of skim through here. All right. So did someone say they sent something? Sorry. I'm sorry. Let me see. I turned off the air conditioner in here, so I'm starting to sweat. Like, what if I just collapsed of heat stroke? Can you imagine like the bad PR it would be? Like a Marilyn Manson fan dies of heat stroke trying to do a trying to do a live stream. Okay. All right. Thank you. Nice. Thank you for the compliments. Diego Echevesti. I don't know what did you just send? Because I didn't get anything. Sorry. Maybe it's delayed. Let's see. Thank you, Vanessa. Yep. Someone says I'm a grandma now. All right. So yeah, I was just looking at what some of you were talking about, a custody dispute and stuff. That it's really interesting, like how much of this stuff, these we read about with these celebrities, but there are people every day, and I hear from a lot of them, and I know some of them, right? Who are going through the same stuff. Just, normal people. Okay, so one thing I wanted to say, and I talked about this a little in the video, but I want to expound on it, is that I really do think that one of the things that kind of pushed Evan Rachel Wood into this tizzy and compelled her to commit this unforced error, and I'm going to talk about why it's an error in a moment. But I really think that one of the things that did that, and I'm not trying to brag on myself, I'm just, maybe in a way, maybe I'm just kind of like, wow, that's, like, I'm happy that worked, or maybe it contributed to something happening. Because like a week and a half ago, I announced that I had a couple of sources that were credible but anonymous, that said she had lost custody. And I talked about this in my video. I did get a lot of shit from people Not, I mean, mostly people who think Manson is guilty. Not, I'm not talking about like, as I put it, friendly fire or friendly criticism or whatever. Which, but I mean, that would be fine if it were too. But I'm just saying there were some people on the other side, particularly some big anti-Manson accounts, that really tried to take me to the woodshed and said that I had reached a new low, that I was despicable, that it was horrible, that I was ruining myself by lying and by telling those kinds of lies to say that a woman had lost custody of her child when she hadn't. People said I was a grandstander. They said that a clickbait artist, all kinds of stuff like that. And I even had a lot of people telling me, both in public messages and then some in like hate mail or hate DMs, that they just knew Evan Rachel Wood was going to sue me. That Evan Rachel Wood needed to sue me. That I'd gone too far, whatever. I needed to be sued. And what I said in my video is that it's not something. It really is not something that I would be looking forward to frankly. But it's something that it's a bridge that I crossed in my mind. Now I would say this: her suing me would probably be the best thing that could ever happen to me and my channel in a way. I mean, it would suck, in the short term, and it would be anxiety producing. But if you sue me, I'm going to go to court with you and I'm going to make you expose facts. Okay. So if you'd sue me for something, I guess it would be defamation. But then you know how hard it is to sue for defamation, don't you? Even in the state I'm in, ain't easy. And if you sue me, I am going to make sure that I drag everything out as much as possible in the open and make it public, and use every means available to me legally to make it very hard on you and to make you expose what you have been doing. So the only way that I would be truly worried about defamation is if I really thought that Evan Rachel Wood were innocent, but I don't. So I guess my point is, though, I had a lot of people saying, "Oh, she should sue you, and this is terrible," and all of that. And then, as it turns out, a week and a half later, it turns out that I was right. That, in fact, get this here. I was right. That, in fact, my sources were right that she did lose custody. And so I think what happened was when I announced this, and then some other people, like the Manson cases, Marilyn Manson Uncanceled, and some of the others, and Andrea Burkhart was talking about it too. Um, They were saying the same stuff, and I think Evan Rachel Wood, I know that Evan Rachel Wood watches my stuff, and I know that she watches some of the others, and she keeps close tabs on it, and I think it just drove her crazy, and I think that she thought that maybe that I was about to launch some big thing where I was gonna, like, expose the fact that she had lost custody or whatever, and I wasn't, because my sources had said all they had to say, and they didn't have, like, court documents to leak to me or anything. It wasn't anything like that. And they weren't gonna go on camera. It was done. That's all I had to say. And honestly, at the time, I felt kinda lame about it. I was like, "Oh, shit," I'm getting a lot of blowback for that, and I don't know, maybe it did kinda come off as just sort of tacky or whatever, but I knew that she had lost custody, and I thought that it was relevant. And so I don't know. I think that that had an effect. And then, like I said, I think Marilyn Manson coming out defiantly online, moving on with his life. I mean, this woman is a deeply disturbed, pathological woman, and I mean, she's like Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction with that light scene, and she's just flicking it. Y'all seen that movie? I know there's a new show, and it's growing on me. At first, I didn't like it with Joshua Jackson, but it's growing on me. But I love, love, love the original '80s movie. It's one that my parents loved. We watched it all the time. I had it memorized as a kid, kind of as weird as that is. Maybe that's why I ended up doing what I'm doing now, right? I mean, who knows? That's how things get embedded in your mind. But Fatal Attraction, it's this crazy malignant BPD lady, and she gets a fixation on this guy, and like he's yeah, he shouldn't have been screwing around on his wife, right? I'm not letting him off the hook for that. But she gets this fixation on this guy, and then she just goes crazy and she starts terrorizing him and stuff. And so there's this scene where she's just gotten herself like so like crazed and worked up that she's just finally like just fall like she's just like falls but down by the wall, I guess. And there's this scene where she's just like in a daze, and she's just sitting there just flicking the light on, off, on, off. That's kind of how I imagine Evan Rachel Wood. And so, so I think when things like this happen, when stories get out that she doesn't want to get out and she gets anxious and she thinks, well, what more is going to come out? And is someone going to actually report the truth that I did lose custody? So I got to get around this. I got to get ahead of it. And not only am I going to get ahead of it, but I'm going to use it as another look. I'm so clever. I'm smart. Evan Rachel Wood. I know just how to say things. I've been on all these talk shows. And I'm so clever. I'm not only gonna put out a statement, get ahead of this. I'm gonna turn it around. I'm gonna blame Marilyn Manson. So actually, it's gonna be another opportunity for me to lob another ball at Marilyn Manson. Throw some more rocks at Marilyn Manson in the press. Oh, it's just gonna work out great, just great. And so she commits this huge unforced error, and now because of it, I told you earlier that we're going to have a couple of guests on, hopefully. And I kind of got off track as I do on these live streams, but they're not going to be on. They're not going to be on for very long, just like 20, 25 minutes. We're going to have Celtic. I know some people have, some people have a wide variety, a wide range of reactions to him. And then following up, okay, as a palate cleanser, if you will, we will have Andrea. I hope now that I've said her name, she has to come on. Now, Andrea Burkhart, attorney Andrea Burkhart, she has not publicly reacted to this news really, except she was schooling people on a couple of things today. But she's going to try to come on, and so that will be in an hour. So we're going to have Celtic on in a half an hour, and then if God with us, Andrea Burkhart, if God is with us, Andrea Burkhart will come on and will tell us our view of things. So that's the lineup for the rest of the night. But got a half an hour, and so I wanted to say why. First of all, why Evan Rachel Wood has screwed up, or how this is really a huge screw up on her part. Like, I think this is a colossal mistake and a colossal unforced error. And let me tell you why I'm so gleeful over this. Like, I may not seem it now because I'm tired, honestly. And I wish I could bring more to the party here, but I'm tired. And I, I just wanted to do this even though I was exhausted, right? So I'm sorry if you sense a certain lack of enthusiasm. I assure you that lack of enthusiasm that you're sensing is because I'm feeling a lack of enthusiasm. So just make sure we're clear on that. All right. Think about it. Yeah. So here's the problem. Okay. From Evan Rachel Wood's perspective, this is why what she's done is so stupid. It's so stupid, and I'm so gleeful over it. I love it. Even that effed up article in the blast that she thought was gonna really be this great spin for her. I was gleeful when I saw it, and this is why. Because I came to the conclusion some time ago that it is going to be probably too difficult for a lot of people. I'm not talking about the people on this live stream. I'm not talking about you in the audience and supporters and people who are clued into this stuff. But most people, your average person, whatever, I came to the conclusion a while ago that it's going to be very difficult to get them to feel any great need to vindicate Marilyn Manson, or to feel any great affection for him, such as even like a fraction of what people feel for Johnny Depp. And I think, and other people have agreed with me, and that umbrella guy, for instance, we talked about this when he came on my show, and that's on my channel if you want to check it out. But I think, and others think, that Marilyn Manson, that his image, the scary image, and yes, it's just a character, it's not really who he is, but this image that he constructed that was so commercially and artistically successful in the 90s and in the 2000s, right? It's not working anymore. I mean, I'm not saying, it's not like a critique of his art, or like if he comes out with a dark persona, I'm going to say, oh, not again. I'm just talking about, though, like some of the most sort of shocking aspects of his shtick over the years, and some of and antics and everything, and some of those fictionalized stories in his autobiography, quote unquote. I'm just saying, like, now, especially in the wake of all these crazy allegations by these hoaxers, like Cray Cray Ray Ray and the others, that now, that image is not working for him. It's hurting him, and it's hard for people to get past that. If people could get past that and they could see Brian Warner and not Marilyn Manson, then that would be, I think, really helpful. Because as I understand it from the people that I trust, whom I've interviewed, Brian Warner, the real guy, is someone that actually, if you knew him, I think you would like him. And I don't say that from personal experience, but I've talked to a lot of people and some of them on my channel, right? But anyway, I came to the conclusion some time ago that it was just going to be very difficult. I'm not saying impossible, and I'm not trying to be cynical, but very difficult to get enough people to care about him to then care about this hoax. That it's going to be a very different thing than with Johnny Depp. And a number of you know this, right? So I thought, well, if you can't, if one cannot get most people to love Marilyn Manson, or to like Marilyn Manson, or to see Brian Warner, then maybe you can get people to see Evan Rachel Wood more clearly, or maybe that should be sort of a general like goal of my coverage. And of those, others of you who are trying to fight back against this BS narrative, get people then to look at Evan Rachel Wood and say, well, I don't know, about, but man, this lady, she was kidnapping our son from this nice guy, Jamie Bell, someone who is seemingly more sympathetic to a lot of people than Marilyn Manson, Billy Elliot. She's kidnapping him. She's alienating him. She's withholding the kid. She's a bad mother. She's doing damage to her own kid. I mean, seemingly from what we get from those court documents, apparently, lost custody of her kid. And not only that, she, yes, did forge an FBI letter with a real FBI agent's name, and she gave the letter with the real agent's name and a faked number to Jamie Bell when they were in the midst of this custody dispute. And she gave him this a number of you know this, but she gave him this fake letter because she was trying to fool him into thinking that she had a legitimate reason to keep his son from him, because she was giving him this BS excuse that she was so terrified of Marilyn Manson. And that's why she had to run away to Tennessee and keep her son in Tennessee and not let the son go to LA where he was legally supposed to be. Like she abducted her kid legally and then fed him all these crazy stories to make him afraid. And to the point where the kid was apparently drawing evil pictures of Marilyn Manson. The guy who's trying to hurt me, he said. Hurt me. Evan Rachel Wood has got this kid worried that Marilyn Manson is going to hurt the kid. I mean, it's sick. It's sick. And I can't overstate, by the way, I can't overstate how sick it is. And this was something else that I have said before. But I have to tell y'all, I watched Phoenix Rising, that BS hit job documentary that Evan Rachel Wood did about Marilyn Manson. Just complete delusional propaganda on her part. But I watched that for like the third time the other day before I did the long live stream. So the long, 24-hour one or whatever. Before I did that, I watched that the other day. And, I saw it in a different way. I saw that documentary in a different way because the first two times I watched it, I was watching it for details, So like the first time I watched it, it was just trying to take in, everything that was being said and what Evan Rachel Wood was claiming and stories she was telling and all. It was just kind of coming at me fast, right? Second time I watched it, it was to actually like scrutinize it and look for holes in the logic, which there were many, and find points to discuss and to critique and what have you, right? So sort of very sort of like technical, whatever, focused. But this third time that I watched it, at first I didn't even watch it really. I just had it turned on in the background. I was cleaning my house. And so I thought, well, I just want to be I want to be kind of back in the mode of thinking about this Manson stuff, especially I'm going to do a 24-hour live stream. So I'm going to watch this and I'll kind of like have more things to talk about or think about or whatever. Right. So I just kind of had Phoenix Rising, this Evan Rachel Wood documentary on in the background and so cleaning or whatever. And I guess because I had seen it before and so I wasn't laser focused on just like details and stuff or the plot, so to speak. I really and maybe because I wasn't looking right at it, it's kind of like one of those pictures from the 90s where the 3D pictures where you can't see the 3D image until you like relax and unfocus your eyes. For some reason, I felt like I just had this perfect clarity when I was watching this or when it was on. And after a while, I kind of became transfixed by it. I stopped cleaning my house and I literally sat down at one point and I'm just staring. I mean, it makes me sound kind of bizarre. I'm just staring there kind of open-mouthed because I'm thinking, my God, this woman is truly crazy. And I was watching like all of her, like her little like gesticulations, and what the face would do, and even, how she would have tears, and everything seemed really authentic in a way, but also really off, right? But maybe I'm biased in reading it that way because I already knew going into it was gonna be BS. But really, really great acting. It wasn't Amber Heard, trying to do this or whatever. It was really great acting. And I sat there and I marveled at it and I thought, this woman is so pathological. And I don't know if it's all out delusion or if she knows she's lying or if it's some kind of weird, monstrous hybrid between the two where you can't tease out what's lies and what are delusions. And I think maybe that's the case. But I thought this woman is so pathological. She is so sick. Look at this entire charade, that not only this entire charade that she has constructed and that she's playing to the hilt, but also look at how many years and how many facets of this thing she how many years she spent on this, how many facets of this hoax she's constructed. Like, she is all in. She is throwing herself into this thing. It wasn't like that with Amber Heard, and I'm not letting Amber off the hook for anything, but I do wanna make an interesting distinction. Not a moral distinction, but just an interesting distinction here. I did see AJ's, super chat. 1 second. Here we go. Thank you, AJ. Sorry for being late, folks. Oh, you had to pay the $10 super chat penalty for your lateness. I had a guest that came to my cat Sally's 9th birthday celebration and needed a ride home afterwards. Let me tell you though, that tuna cake, oh, it sure did go quick. I don't need to hear about a tuna right now. I feel kind of nauseated. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it was seriously. AJ has a cat. It just turned 9. Her name's Sally, and it was her birthday. And so, but I don't want to think about the tuna cake right now. Okay. Thanks, AJ. Yeah, we don't care if you're late. We're glad you're here, but no worries. Um, so I was just so the difference between Amber Heard and Evan Rachel Wood. Well, Evan Rachel Wood is a better actress, yes, but also I don't think that Amber really set out. Well, look, yes, she constructed a hoax, and yes, she set out to. We know that even years in advance, like she was saying on those messages to Johnny, who would have thought that like years ago I would have been planning on that? We know that she did all that. I'm just saying though that like Amber Heard was so small time compared to Evan Rachel Wood in a way. Like I know she put Johnny Depp through hell and that was a huge thing. I'm not saying she's like not as bad. I'm just saying that Evan Rachel Wood, she really is Amber Heard 2.0. Like she took the model, I don't know, knowingly, unknowingly, whatever, but she took the model that Amber Heard had provided and she just like leveled it up. Yes, Evan Rachel Wood leveled up the Amber Heard game. And so I was just sitting there and I was just watching like all the sort of the permutations, of her face and all the little like inflections of tone and the way she would even do sort of like self-deprecating things and just the little things that she would drop in here. And I just thought, this is like a genius. I hate to say it, but I thought this is a genius, but a genius who is putting her mind, whose mind is cannibalizing itself. And as a part of that cannibalization, that self-cannibalization, it's just like spitting out this pathology. She is completely, oh, hey, Paul, what is up? Paul says, hey, Colonel Kurtz and everyone else. Well, hello to you too. I mean, all of the work and the effort that she's put into this hoax. I don't mean to be like, melodramatic or silly or whatever in saying this. But, like, all of the work that Evan Rachel Wood has put into this hoax, like, think of what she could have directed her efforts to if she if she hadn't gotten this crazy idea that. And I understand it's about more than getting Marilyn Manson. Like, yeah, it's about she had this grand vision for herself of becoming this huge gender activist, again, making Amber Heard. Amber Heard wanted to, like, write some op-eds and give some speeches, but, like, Evan Rachel Wood, she's getting like Drew Barrymore kneeling on the ground in front of her, and saying, you're my hero. You're the best person in the world," or whatever that Looney Tune was babbling. Same thing with Dylan Mulvaney. Same thing. What is it with her getting on her knees in front of so many of her guests? Like, I'm not trying to be talk about like sexual or whatever. I'm not trying to imply that. I'm just saying like what is this need to like constantly like supplicate yourself? I don't get it. I don't understand. She's so weird. She's so weird. She was doing that to Brooke Shields too. And then all this like touchy-feely stuff. Like, I don't need to see the TV host molest the guests. I don't understand. I hope she gets her guests to sign consent forms for some of that because I wouldn't want someone doing some of that shit to me. If I'm not going on Drew Barrymore's show, I don't, I don't want to touch him. Oh man. Well, um, so why was it a mistake? Yeah, let's get back to what I was talking about. My point is, okay, so I realized a while back, sorry for all the digressions. I realized a while back that yeah, the more effective strategy would be to try to expose Evan Rachel Wood and that she did all this shit to her baby daddy and to her child. And so when I discovered, and it wasn't me, right? It was, I think it was Marilyn Manson Uncanceled or someone else who discovered or came upon this Tennessee court custody case. But or maybe it was the Daily Mail actually wrote an article about it way back when. But anyway, point is when I found out about this a while back, I just sort of skimmed through the court documents, but I didn't really read them. Of this custody dispute between, Evan Rachel Wood and Jamie Bell in Tennessee. I just kind of skimmed through them and I thought, that makes her look bad. But I just skimmed them really quick and there was something else going on in the time in my life, or maybe in with the Manson or Depp stuff or whatever. And so I just said, okay, sort of filed it away in my head. Well, what happened was, I would say probably a couple of months ago, I happened to someone happened to say to me, "Oh, probably be a good idea to do a video on that FBI thing and really go harder at that." One of my friends online said that, I think that's really effective and that's something that really gets people. What? She faked an FBI letter? Yeah. So I wanted to know where that FBI letter had come from, and I wanted to look more into that. And of course, the FBI letter in which Evan Rachel Wood constructed this false FBI letter claiming that Marilyn Manson was under an FBI investigation, et cetera, falsely claiming these things and defaming Manson in that. Well, she submitted this letter to the Tennessee court. She submitted a faked FBI letter to the Tennessee court. I mean, how is this woman not in any kind of trouble? I don't know. It's amazing. But she submitted this letter to the court, gave it to Jamie Bell, sent him on this wild goose chase, calling numbers that weren't right and playing phone tag with the wrong people and all. I mean, like a very intricate hoax. This woman is crazy. She is pathological. Anyway, this got me interested then in the Tennessee family custody dispute, because I was like, well, what is this? Okay. Because Evan had always made it seem, and people who were pro Evan defenders had always said, well, she doesn't have any issues with Jamie Bell. Now, Evan, I would say last couple of years, she's made it clear that she has, posting all this stuff, like I said, about narcissistic exes and co-parenting with a narcissist and blah, blah, blah. But for a while, it seemed, at least publicly, that things were simpatico between her and Jamie Bell. And so to come upon this and to see these Tennessee court custody documents showing what a monster, frankly, she is. Seriously, what a monster she is. And a very sick, pathological woman who would even psychologically harm her kid. All in the name of this hoax. And I thought, well, people need to see this because this is something more concrete. Okay, this isn't me saying that Evan Rachel Wood is a bad person or whatever. This is someone who seems like a nice guy, who has a good reputation, and who really seems like he's speaking from a place of earnestness, who is voicing these very real concerns about her and is talking about specific alarming behaviors. And there's this whole, court matrix, legal matrix around this of like other people testifying, right? And so you have other people involved talking about this and so forth. And so my point is, I saw this and I thought, well, this is a fairly concrete way to show people what a deceptive, manipulative, fatal attraction, lights flickering person she is, and that she put her ex-husband through hell, the father of a child. They weren't legally married, but ceremonially, but she put him through hell, and she's apparently been putting her kid through a kind of hell and saying a bunch of lies and crazy stuff. And so I thought this is great in the sense, not great, but this is great in the sense that maybe this will get more people interested and will get more people to see that actually there is a bad guy in this, right? Or there is an Amber type in this. But the problem was, I still don't have a very big voice. I'm grateful for the subscribers that I have and the views that I get, but I mean, my videos, they get generally several thousand views, or, maybe with it's a good video, it'll get into the upper tens of thousands. But I just don't have that level of influence. And I thought, how to get this to catch on. And really, it was something that I'd been like actually thinking about and sort of strategizing in my mind, like, how can I make this story bigger? And so, yeah, I did a video and I posted a bunch of court documents all over Twitter and Instagram. And I was trying to get, other people interested. And I did, thank God, like Tug got interested, that umbrella guy. And he did address this and cover this a bit, even before today. And then he did a video today. And I know he had some issues with YouTube, but he's going to be talking about it. And of course, Andy and Steph at Popcorn Planet and all the others. And so, it was getting out to a degree, but not really. And I thought, wow, it's so discouraging, or how to sort of break through into make this a more mainstream story, or make it a story that bigger people will pay attention to. And then Evan Rachel Wood did it. She did it. She took this rather obscure custody dispute that not many people outside of the Marilyn Manson support group knew about, and she blew it up into to where it is being reported, and I think it will be reported as this story plays out over, the next day or so, into a legitimate story. And now this is going to drive more people to say, well, wait a minute, what is this court? What is this thing with her and custody, and what's the situation? And it gave Manson two really great openings, in the sense that, first of all, apparently, as I understand it, and I guess Andrea can address this more when she comes on, in Manson's lawsuit against Evan, which is still ongoing, even though, yes, the judge hampered it in a lot of ways. But in Manson's lawsuit now, apparently, this will open up discovery on a number of things that probably would not have been up for discovery, or would not have been in play legally. Evan Rachel Wood has brought this stuff in. And again, she has now made this a media focus. She is the one who said, hey, everybody, look at this. Hey, everybody, I know that almost none of you were paying attention to this rather obscure custody story with me, that basically no one other than this small group of Manson supporters and some, a YouTuber or two was into. But hey, why don't you focus your attention on it? Because, I gave up custody and Marilyn Manson's a bad guy. Here's this story. And so people look at the story and they say, well, this doesn't make sense. What's going on here? I looked at some of the comments when this story came out today. It was also posted on Yahoo, Evan Rachel Wood's story, right? And the comments under that, people were like, well, wait a minute. You're saying that you were afraid of Marilyn Manson, but your ex lives in LA near Marilyn Manson. So why would it be safer to send the child back to LA? That's weird. Okay. And all of these people just based on the article, just based on that shitty article, we're poking all these holes in it, right? And it just looks bad. Maybe it shouldn't, but a mother voluntarily giving up custody of her child. I'm not saying, look, I hate there's double standards, and if this were a situation where the woman was genuinely worried about the safety of her kid, then I would understand. But like, most people just sense that there's something fundamentally wrong with the idea of a mother just giving up custody of her kids. And they know that that's not really what happened then. Okay. And for the California courts to have taken custody away from her and given primary custody to the father, where she's only allowed to see the kid like once a month, holidays or whatever, right? She effed up. She fucked up. She did. And then she decided to come out and announce it and make it a big story and take what I've been doing and amplify it and also validate me in the process. Like, look, thank you, Evan Rachel Wood. I just want to say publicly, I'm sitting here like sweating. You can't really see it, thank God, because I guess of the lighting, but I really am sweating. I need Celtic Iron to come on and get on here so I can run to the restroom. I just want to say, though, Evan Rachel Wood, I really want to say thank you so much for doing this, because, I was kind of looking like an idiot to a lot of people. And I was sort of feeling bad about it, to be honest. I don't really like to admit weakness publicly, to be honest with you. When I came out publicly and I said that I had heard that you had lost custody, and then I was getting pushback and stuff, and I kind of thought, and it didn't really seem like that story was really getting traction either. And I was just like, oh, well, I kind of did that for nothing. And also, kind of maybe that was a little too much or didn't look right or whatever. And then you come along and you make me look like legit. Like you validated my story and you validated my sources and everything. So thank you. And you made this a big story. And now I'm going to get a lot more views on the videos that I have done and will do on this. And you also, and finally, this is the final way in which she effed up. You finally went too far, and the big bear is awake now. And I'm talking about Marilyn Manson. I'm talking about Brian Warner. And I don't mean the big bear because he's so ferocious, but I mean the guy has had enough, I would imagine. And that's why he is apparently approving this story, or at least his representative or his contact, mutual contact, talking to the Daily Mail and getting his perspective out there. So we get this big story now. Manson fights back in the Daily Mail. Manson is pushing back through some of his people, but he is pushing back. And so you gave him that opening now. It was hard for Manson to get his side of the story out. And so now Evan Rachel Wood, you provoked this, you've given him an opening, he's coming in, he's taking it. And I would just imagine that from here on out, that's going to be the MO. That's going to be how things go. And so you might think twice next time before you pull a stunt like this. I know that you're really smug and you think you're really smart because you've succeeded for the last 2 years in pulling the wool over a lot of seemingly intelligent people's eyes. But I just really think your game's coming to an end. And I don't think that these stunts are going to work anymore to the extent that they ever worked. They're going to work anymore. And they're certainly not going to be met going forward, I think, without a strong rebuttal. Yeah, I think so. So anyway, it is 10:58. I tell you what I want to do. There was something that I wanted to show, and I did show it last time on my stream, but that was the 24-hour crazy stream, and so I think a lot of who knows who actually saw it. But something that I've been wanting to show for a while because I just think it is so insane. I was talking about how earlier, like I was watching Phoenix Rising, and I just became sort of overwhelmed and awestruck with how pathological Evan Rachel Wood is. And I had a similar feeling when I watched her ridiculous testimony before Congress, and I don't think a lot of people have seen it, because when I did show it last time in the marathon, there were people who were saying, "Oh my god, I've never watched this all the way through," or, "Oh my god, this is crazy," or, "How crazy she is." And so I actually wanted to do a video on this. I'm not gonna do it tonight, but I wanted to at some point soon. I wanted to actually do a video where I look at this speech that she gave before Congress, National Congress, our Congress, and break it down and just to look at it and see how pathological she is, that she is carrying off this charade and saying all this crazy stuff. So this will give me an opportunity to go to the restroom. This will give me an opportunity. This will give Celtic Iron an opportunity to get loaded here, so to speak, get in the queue and so forth. And some of you, if you need to take a break, but I'm going to put Evan Rachel Wood on. I'm going to take like a 5-minute break or whatever. And I'm going to put Evan Rachel Wood on. You can watch her congressional testimony. It's so crazy. She's so crazy. So hold on one second. I'm going to call this up. Ray. That is what I am going to call her from now on. Okay, here we go. I think I found it. Aha. There we go. Yeah, so get your popcorn out or whatever. I don't know. I'm going to watch, be entertained by something cuckoo. Ray. She's a little tricky. Don't let her mess with your dicky. No, okay. Just a second. All right, so Celtic, maybe this will be kind of a good entry point for you. We're going to watch this and then I'm going to have you on. So let's all watch this for, I don't know. I don't think it's a full 7 minutes here. We'll watch until she stops talking. But it is she gives this long speech and it is pretty ridiculous if you haven't seen it. All right. Well, maybe not. Let's try to do sound.
AG1 by Athletic Greens is a daily nutritional solution.
That's not the one. Oh, maybe someone else had enough of her. You can't hear the sound. Oh, no, she was just being quiet. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Never fear. Here comes Cray Cray Ray Ray.
Ranking Member Jackson Lee and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to testify today. My name is Evan Rachel Wood, and I'm an artist, but I am also a domestic violence and sexual assault survivor and the single mother of a young boy. When I was 5 years old, I started working in film, and every day since then, I worked to reach the very privileged place I'm aware that I occupy. And I'm here today to use my position as an artist, survivor, mother, and advocate to bring a human voice to the population of 25 million survivors in the US who are currently experiencing inequality under the law and who desperately need basic civil rights. I struggle to speak to you today because I'm not sure what words are appropriate when discussing this issue. However, if you can't hear the whole truth, you will never know true empathy. And I believe in the saying, if we have to live through it, then you should have to hear it. This past year and the massive movements such as Me Too and Time's Up have been extremely empowering and validating for survivors, but also incredibly painful. While no one had to tell me that rape was such a worldwide epidemic, to see the flood of stories so similar to my own was both freeing and soul-crushing. Waves of memories and detail came flooding into my brain every time I read the words. I froze. I thought I was the only human who experienced this, and I carried so much guilt and confusion about my response to the abuse. I accepted my powerlessness, and I felt I deserved it somehow. Why? There are two specific instances of sexual assault and violence I've experienced that really stick out in my mind. In fact, they are burned into my brain, branded there for life, a mental scar that I feel every day. My experience with domestic violence was this: toxic mental, physical, and sexual abuse, which started slow but escalated over time, including threats against my life, severe gaslighting and brainwashing, waking up to the man that claimed to love me raping what he believed to be my unconscious body. And the worst part, sick rituals of binding me up by my hands and feet to be mentally and physically tortured until my abuser felt I had proven my love for them. In this moment, while I was tied up and being beaten and being told unspeakable things, I truly felt like I could die, not just because my abuser said to me, I could kill you right now, but because in that moment, I felt like I left my body and I was too afraid to run. He would find me. I froze, and it was as if I could see myself from the outside, and for the first time in months, I felt something, utter shame and despair. I had no idea what to do to change my situation, so I went numb, and soon I couldn't feel anything. I wasn't alive. My self-esteem and spirit were broken. I was deeply terrified, and that fear lives with me to this day. What makes me more hurt and more angry than the actual rape and abuse itself was that piece of me that was stolen, which altered the course of my life. Because of this abuse, my already spiritless person, when I was pushed onto the floor of a locked storage closet by another attacker after hours at a bar, my body instinctively knew what to do: disappear, go numb, make it go away. Being abused and raped previously made it easier for me to be raped again, not the other way around. And not a day goes by when I don't hear the words this man whispered into my ear over and over: you're going to be fine, you're going to be fine, you're going to be fine. And then my small voice sang back, no, 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 no.
Oh, God.
Until it faded into nothing. And I remember the feeling of shutting down or freezing and utter shock taking over, and I couldn't even make a sound. I felt a piece of me disappear, a piece that is never returned.
So
In other
insane.
words, I was not fine, and I am not fine. I was told the signs. My mother is also a survivor, but even she couldn't protect her daughter from the messages women and men are fed by society that plays a role in determining our fate, or the dark magic of gaslighting. Sometimes we are pushed down not just by our attackers, but held there by the knowledge that there may be no safe place to go. Huge part of the conversation that needs much more attention. And in this case, I can speak from my own experiences.
So if I keep sliding it, I'm not going to make us listen to all of it, but look, she keeps talking. Like as I slide, like you think, oh my God, and then you realize finally, she talked like this for 7 minutes. So anyway, I don't know. I'm just like I said, she's one of those pathological people I've ever seen. That's what I have to say. Hello, Celtic Iron. What do you want to tell us? What do you think?
Oh, this just reminds me why Hillary Clinton lost the election in 2016. I mean, listening to Evan Rachel Wood there talk just for the few minutes that we were is just like, what do we have to do to shut her up? Just shut her, just give her whatever she wants and just get her out of here. All right, I can't take any more of this. It was like listening to a poetry reading, like a beat poetry reading or something. She was like hitting all these syncopations and rhythms that she clearly rehearsed. I like
It
do
was
like
so
the sweater.
monotone too, though. That's what was
Yeah.
weird is like at the same time, no, you're right. At the same time, it had all this like calculated pauses and this and that, right? But then also like it had this weird. When I was this age, this happened to me. He seemed like he was a good man, but he wasn't. It's just like, come on.
I
And
feel that if any of that was actually true, you'd be terrified of the people that did those things to you. You wouldn't be talking about it. I don't think there's ever been a victim of the things that she's claiming that is with a profile as big as hers that has gotten on TV and talked that level of shit, because for genuinely like all that, like waking up and somebody that you're living with, like having you tied down and making love to your unconscious
it's
body and stuff.
grotesque. I know. I know.
That's wild. Wild.
That's the thing is it sounds like it's basically like these women and mostly, yeah, Evan Rachel Wood, she was the instigator, but the others as well. It was almost like they got together and they said, okay, how many cliches from like serial killer films, can we come up with and put into one person? And like it's like you always say, they reached too far. Like they made their stories so unbelievable. And she's just sitting there saying, oh yeah, and then he electrified my wounds and he did this and that. It's like, what? What?
Yeah, I mean, whatever about him, making love to or to supposedly unconscious bodies, and all the violence and all the alleged sex. My thing is the coldness of the rooms. The way he'd lord over how cold and how warm the rooms were. That was a big sticking point in that People magazine article. Like, and he always had to have the blinds drawn. He's Dracula.
That's what they're trying
Um,
to present. They wanted to present like the most like the darkest like cliche, almost like something from a serial killer movie or something like that. So what do you think about Evan Rachel Wood's strategy of trying to get ahead of this story by announcing the story?
I think you said it very well there. I mean, just there's no woman or man, there's no human being. There's like, do you know how difficult it is? Not just in America or California, well, okay, but particularly in California, okay, particularly like the most liberal place in the world and all of America, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Or well, at least, sorry, not actually liberal. Like Norway and Sweden would be the most liberal, in Nordic countries, Berlin, Denmark, and France as well. But liberal in the sense of like that hypocritical liberalism,
You're like woke,
where they're
woke.
very woke,
People don't
idiotic.
like that word, but we all know what it means.
Yes,
So
idiotic woke culture, exactly. So here in California, like there's rapists that get to keep their daughters and murderers that get to keep their sons and daughters, and Evan Rachel Wood has had her taken custody of her child taken away from her. The level of danger a judge, and a judge is a human being, it doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman or if they're a Democrat or a Republican, they're a human being. The amount of danger a judge must consider a child to be in for them to remove them from the mother that gave birth to them and give it to the father is like, it's up there with it's I mean, without going into my own experience with it, but it's up there with women that have dependency issues on serious drugs, for Evan Rachel Wood. Like the judge must have been really, really scared of what's going on in that household and what kind of psychological impact her behavior is having on that child. I mean, poor Jamie Bell, he's had the devil's day, but they gave him a good licking. I mean, she really dropped the ball. I mean, putting her hand out, there's no way. That's how delusional she is. There's no way that anybody can hear that and be like, hang on, but you're afraid for your child's safety, so you willingly, like, because she didn't have to, like, legally give up everything. If everything was cool between her and Jamie, it just highlights, just draws attention immediately to the fact that there is something very rotten in the state of Denmark surrounding Evan Rachel Wood. Why would you have to announce that you legally gave up custody of your child willingly to your ex-husband, the father of the child, because you were worried? But you're now sending them to the state where the predator,
The
or
city.
perpetrator
He's
of
like
these
around
lives.
the corner.
Yeah, they probably live. Yeah, they probably live in the same area, or in Echo Park or something very cool
Uh,
and trendy. You know. Um,
I actually
oh,
don't know where Marilyn Manson lives, although someone told me that it leaked out. But exactly, it makes no sense. And also, the thing that I keep saying is like, you've seen that awful documentary, Phoenix Rising, but like she has her son in it repeatedly, like, and it's like in your face too. It's not just like, oh, he's on the periphery. It's like clearly a number of those scenes were written to capitalize on her son's presence. And it's like, how scared can you be? And she's got pictures of the safe house too. Like the thing was filmed, some of Phoenix Rising Part 2 was filmed inside the Tennessee safe house. And here she is. She's like, oh, yes, we had to run away. And you see her this, like running kind of through her house, grabbing things and stuff. And she's comforting her dog at one point. You guys, if you haven't seen the
Jesus
scene where
Christ.
she's saying, it's going to be okay to her dog. Like, that's what I'm saying about when I say this woman is nuts. Nuts.
No, I mean, but to be honest, when you have a Navy SEALs guarding your house, you want to get your money's worth out of them. You know, you might as well give them a bit of a run. You know.
That's right. That's right. She had a team. That's right. They didn't show it, but she had a team of SEALs, in a
Yeah,
van
because
behind her.
Marilyn Manson has an entire army of ghouls and goblins that are just like out there cutting their wrists and like drinking blood and having orgies and just hunting, lock, stock, ready to rock, hunting for Evan Rachel Wood and any other accusers or anybody that says anything bad about Brian Warner or Marilyn Manson. You know, it's not like anybody has day jobs. This is the thing, how detached from reality this woman is. Do you know how expensive concert tickets are and merchandise is? It's just like wild. Well, nobody has the time for this level of like, just she's a big fantasist, but she's very similar to that Meghan Markle girl, where it's like she can't help herself. That's why you're very good and accurate at describing her as Amber Heard scenario. I actually think there's a better way of saying it though, because it actually gives clout to Amber Heard, because Amber Heard, like God love her, was not a clever girl, but bless her heart, you know. But Evan Rachel
No,
Wood,
she was.
she's got a bit more. She's got a bit more going on. Like I gotta admit, I do find her she's way more attractive than Amber Heard. Like Evan Rachel Wood, I'd spend time with. Amber Heard, you couldn't, you know. But Evan Rachel Wood and Meghan Markle, you know, when they're devious and they actually get places. Like she got up in front of Congress. We just watched footage of her in a nice Aran sweater crochet with her little,
Oh, it was
necklace
ridiculous.
on
She
the
had her Me
outside.
Too
Oh,
uniform. Her Me Too
yeah,
uniform.
no, the hair. She was looking all awkward and like she was some sort of beaten with a cane,
Uh-huh.
opiate survivor, and she's there giving it all. It was too much over the board. But she took it to heights. She talked her shit and she leveraged it, just like you pointed out. She had Drew Barrymore, a star for over the past 40 years in Hollywood, on her hands and knees, praising her for what? You know, using her victimhood to gain more fame. These women like Meghan Markle and Amber Heard, they've all had the world in the palm of their hand, but they
Mhm.
just reach, and it's the reach that'll get you.
Yeah, her outfits, absolutely, I agree. And I was thinking, I always like to point out when we look at Evan Rachel Wood's outfit for her testimony, either here or before the California Assembly. It always reminds me of, it's like a Me Too uniform or something, like the Shannon twins. These were two of Hugh Hefner's exes, and of course they dressed, very risque and stuff.
They're two whales that escaped. You know, Shamu, SeaWorld. These are two African killer whales that escaped. You notice the pattern of black and white. This is what's going on here, folks. Don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. They're free now. Lord bless them. California liberalism, America.
Oh man. I mean, it's like, does anybody really think that this is how these women like normally dress? Because it sure as hell wasn't how they dressed when it sure as hell wasn't how they dressed when they were on Hugh Hefner's show and everything. And it's just like, I just think it's so laughable, and it really shows it's such an insult to people's intelligence to think that that's going to work, that we're going to look at Evan Rachel Wood and we're going to see her in this washed out blah gray knitted sweater and with and buttoned up, shirt underneath, buttoned up to her neck, and that little like locket and the sort of like straight homely hair style. I mean, it's supposed to be oozing simplicity. I'm just a simplistic little girl. I would
Yeah.
never construct a hoax against somebody.
I don't enjoy anal sex, cocaine, amphetamines, and doing the old Nazi goose step every now and then. You know what I mean? Oh man.
Yeah, so how long before that footage catches on? I wish, speaking of things that I wish I
Oh,
had
when
some.
that hits, when the mainstream, because it's turning. They're turning on Meghan Markle. They turned on your one Amber Heard. Thou shall which not be named. And now they're going to turn on Evan Rachel Wood, man. This thing, ooh, we got a fun couple of, because the election's on its way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Ooh baby, this is going to be good. Yeah, that's why Hillary Clinton lost, by the way, is because nobody wanted to listen to what their ex-wife had to say. You know, she just looked like everyone's grandmother. And said, "I get that nagging bitch out of here, for Christ." Anyway.
I really, I sense a real love of Hillary Clinton coming through here, a real repressed love.
Yeah, man, I just like this, but this is the whole thing, the gambit that got in there. Like these people
Mhm.
have literally changed laws to go after Hillary Clinton's opponent, who ended up winning the president Donald Trump. And the backlash of that is that they changed the laws to get Donald Trump, and that's what's having a knock-on effect with Marilyn Manson and Brian Warner's case. Is that they changed the statute of limitations because Evan Rachel Wood in this scenario by politicians was in fact used like a mechanic would use an instrument as a tool. She was a tool for people that are in more positions of power, and she was leveraged with her fame to get in there, talk some shit in front of the people in her iron sweater with her cross on, and like it's just like Kesha. Hang on, getting up at the goddamn Grammys. Excuse, I don't mean to say God in any blasphemous way, but it's just like Kesha. It's like, oh, you mean I'll get applause from everyone at the Grammys if I get up here and sing about rape? Oh, if I'm a survivor, oh, I'll take that attention.
Well,
I'll take.
her recent apparently her upcoming or recent album is called Gag Order, because again, she's trying to reference the fact that she was silenced by the
Yeah,
judge
she's
and
delighted that she's been silenced because if they were able to ask her some questions, that would be a pretty embarrassing thing for the whole Me Too movement thing as well. All right,
oh,
like she was
yeah.
working for Dr. Luke. There's a whole it's been going on for years. It's not that's another that just yeah, the whole Me Too movement thing wasn't the main. All the women. Is there any woman that was involved in the Me Too movement during that period of time that is actually like, oh no, they were legit. That was proven correct. You know,
Well,
is
I
there?
mean, the Weinstein accusers and a few others. I mean, there are some guys who've been legitimately taken down. But there are a lot of cases like you mentioned Kesha, and that's something that got me in some trouble with some people because I said that I had looked into it and it seemed like Kesha lied. And I'm not the only one who came to that conclusion. I know Candace Owens is not
Yeah.
hugely popular, and I understand why. But like she came out early on, looked
It
into
has
it.
nothing to do with her race. Candace Owens, very intelligent woman. Don't you be saying things like that, Colonel.
What?
Stealing valor. I'm joking. Candace Owens is awesome. I
I don't
really
even
dig her.
know. I can't even understand what you just said. But hey,
It's good.
as it happens, your time is up. So we
Oh,
got
right
Andrea
on.
who's going
Well,
to be coming on in a minute. But what do you want to leave us with? So you have any parting words? We got your link tree below, so people can look in the description and they
thanks
can
very
see
much.
your link
Yeah.
tree. It links to like all of your stuff. You've got what's your main channel that you want to advertise? What's it called?
My new channel is focusing on health, fitness, and it's called Hammer of the Gods and Celtic Iron. So it should turn up there. I'm just posting shorts at the moment, and then I'll be getting to long form content in the near future. But it's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for having me on. And I wish all your fans and audience a wonderful start to a beautiful weekend. And I hope everybody is able to get outside and enjoy some fresh air and keep fighting on the good fight, whatever those may be in your own world. And yeah, this Evan Rachel Wood stuff is hilarious. Uh, Marilyn Manson and Brian Warner is awesome. He's going to be coming out with new music soon. And all the other stuff that's in the media, just enjoy your life. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you. And sometime we'll have you back on and talk about the press conference for one of the other Brian Warner accusers that you crashed, and that was a really funny story. We don't have time tonight, but anyway,
But
check out,
bring
everybody
me
check
on
out
to
your
talk
channel.
about Meghan Markle. I'd kick off about that. I mean, I am Irish. Anytime you want to kick off about the, you know, English hypocrisy, the crown, you know, I'll give it a good what for, right?
English hypocrisy? Oh, so you're on Meghan Markle's side?
No,
Well, you
no,
said
I want to.
English hypocrisy and the crown. That's not Meghan
Yeah,
Markle.
well, no, I want to take them all down.
Oh, okay.
Anybody like this is a broad stroke. Broad stroke.
Oh, I see.
Everybody
Okay,
gets
all the royals, everybody,
There
Meghan
you go.
Markle and the rest, baby and the
Yeah.
bathwater. All right,
God
cool.
bless you.
Everybody, check out your stuff, and we'll see you later, Celtic. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Oh man. So Andrea hopefully is going to be on in just a couple of minutes. Actually, I should probably grab my phone in case she's trying to message me. No, I'll just keep going. Andrea, if you can't make it, no worries. But otherwise, so what else? I'm gonna look in the chat. Did I miss some good chats here? This will be a good time to kind of catch up. So I'm skimming through. No, I wanted to show you Evan Rachel Wood giving that speech because, like, I wanted to show you how long 7.5 minutes is when someone is spouting BS bullshit. And that's what I was so in awe of when I was watching Phoenix Rising the other day. And then when I watch something like that, it's like, yeah, it's painful to listen to. It's bullshit. And but that somebody can be that messed up and that pathological that they could go on for 7.5 minutes that intensely about lies and craziness. You know, there was actually a point too. I don't know if you caught this or not, how closely you were listening. I know it was painful, but there was actually a point in Evan Rachel Wood's speech there before Congress toward the beginning where she said, and I'm paraphrasing, but she said that she was concerned about telling her story because she knows that stories like that can turn people on. And she knows that her listeners will probably, some of her listeners will be turned on by hearing the details of her abuse. I don't know if you caught that or not, but she said that at the beginning. And I'm thinking, this lady she is such a piece of work. Here she is voluntarily coming before this body of lawmakers who have deigned to allow this actress, and this delusional actress, but this actress to speak on things that she doesn't have a degree in. She's not an expert, right, with anything other than her own crazy anecdotal experience. And they're going to listen to her. And what is she going to do before she launches into her bullshit story? She's going to, in a way, kind of chastise them or sort of insult them by saying, I know that I'm turning some of you on. Some of you pervy lawmakers, I know I'm turning you on. And of course, knowing our Congress as I do, she probably was. But it's like, that's the degree of pathology here. She's not just going to tell this bullshit story, but she's got this whole like meta thing going too of like, oh, this not just this. I'm not just going to tell you the story of my abuse, but also I'm going to sort of do this like larger meta thing of like acknowledging, you know, that it's difficult to tell a story like this, you know, because this and this and this. Like, she likes to really hear herself talk, and she likes to really like explain everything. I noticed that in the Drew Barrymore interview as well. I can't play too much of it or I'll get zapped, but get zapped by YouTube. But I wanted to look at a little bit of it, right? So if we look at just a little bit, just to get a sense of how Evan Rachel Wood is, how delusional she is. All right, so I'm just going to watch just a bit of this here. Evan Rachel Wood breaks down gaslight. Oh, you can't see it, can you? Sorry. Here, I'm talking. Okay, so it says Evan Rachel Wood breaks down gaslighting and how it took time to realize that she was a victim. All right, so just going to watch a little bit of this.
90% of signs of aging are caused by the sun.
That's exactly right. They are caused by the sun. That's why I always wear sunscreen. All right.
A documentary that blew my mind so hard. When your parents are fighting and you're growing up around that and your father says,
we fight because we love each other. This is what people who are in love do. I was so young when I heard it, and it stuck with me, and it clearly affected my mother. And I've spoken to my father about this since, and you know, in that moment, maybe he was thinking he was saying the right thing to try to calm down a young child. But you know, it's these moments and these things that you know, for me, the hardest part
I always tell people as a parent is the things you pass on to your children that you don't mean to. And it's unavoidable. It's just, there's no perfect parent, there's no perfect survivor, there's no perfect person. You know, we all make mistakes, and that's why I was very, you know, proud of my parents for putting themselves out there like this. And you know, I know my parents grew up in a time where therapy was seen as something to be ashamed of, and it meant you were crazy, and nobody talked about these feelings. There was a sort of a different approach to parenting, which was just like, do as I say, not as I do. You know, like, don't speak until you're spoken to. You know, that kind of mentality.
Young too.
Exactly.
And that's what is so incredible about the journey that you do open up with around this incredible subject of what you went through by including your family and how you've grown up and learned together as a unit. Now, then your mom and dad split up. You guys go to Los Angeles, your dad and your brother.
All right. You know, when it comes to her family, I noticed something interesting too with Phoenix Rising, and also with almost every interview that she does, a more extensive interview. She really, I think, enjoys taking some shots at her family. And I mean, I understand she probably has a lot of anger at them, because I think it's her family that messed her up by and large. I mean, I think that dad shows all the signs of being a narcissist, perhaps the mom as well too. And like I've said before, the first 25 minutes of Phoenix Rising is basically devoted to showing what a messed up person Evan Rachel Wood is and how she got to be that way because of this dysfunctional family, right? But I noticed that she takes many opportunities to sort of jab the knife in when she's talking about her family and her parents and everything. And to me, it's really starting to seem like there's almost no one in Evan Rachel Wood's history that she's not fallen out with, or that she's not attacked. You know, she attacks Jamie Bell, not by name, but she attacks him publicly. She seems to not be able to maintain like long-term stable relationships. I mean, these are all the signs of like toxic personalities, right? And like BPD. And I don't know what her exact diagnosis is or whatever, but I'm just saying that you can look at her history and you can see there's a problem there. So anyway, I'm going to look at the chat now, and I'm going to see if you have any questions or anything you want me to address about this. We'll see if Andrea comes on or not. No worries if she doesn't. But what do y'all think? Oh, there she is. Yay! I think probably, Andrea, some people were just hanging on, waiting for you. Okay, you're on.
Oh God. Well, you promised me casual, so casual you get.
Oh, it's great. Well, I'm here sweating up a storm, and like kind of like I'm honestly so tired. I'm like, oh God, am I boring people to death? Because I'm like almost giddy, or not giddy. I'm exhausted. Okay, so tell me, what are your impressions? What do you want to talk about? You can take over the stream for 30 minutes.
I mean, God, it's been, there's been a lot, you know, there's been a lot it's kind of, I don't know, an ongoing thing with this case, that there's nothing forever. And then there's just this massive influx of stuff. I mean, there's the things with the Bianca Kine case. There's, you know, this insane, I mean, what a miscalculated PR move this was. It's just insane.
Do you think that she thought that this would really go well for her if she got ahead of it and she put this story out and spun it on her own terms? Because the story, I mean, you know, it doesn't make any sense, even the way she's presented it.
I know it's incomprehensible to me. I can't make sense of it because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, she must think it helped somehow, but it's just so self-evidently ridiculous. You know, her explanation is so contradictory. I mean, you kidnapped your son because he was unsafe in LA with his dad. So to keep him safe, you sent him to LA with his dad. I mean, make it make sense. It's just crazy. And it's so easily, you know, disproven by anybody who's got the familiarity with those, you know, those documents that are already out there. So just what a bizarre choice of spin. It seems to me like it really created an opening for Manson to come back and hit her the way that he did, because it was such a misstep. I mean, the thing to do with this child custody dispute, it's such a complicated piece of the hoax, right? Because it's like this mixed motive type of situation, and how do you really identify what's driving her in a coherent way. I mean, did she perpetrate an abuse hoax to help her kidnap her kid? Or did she kidnap her kid to make her abuse hoax more persuasive?
I know,
Like,
seriously.
I can't, I know they tie together somehow. It's obvious they overlap. But what's like the prime mover here is just is very bizarre. And so
No, it's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it doesn't make, I think, logical person sense. And so it's just this bizarre miscalculation, because the thing to do with it then, you've obviously, had some video, made some videos, like you've brought this up, like this is the thing that we should not be ignoring about this case is the role that this whole custody dispute played in it. The thing to do with that, if that bothers her, is, number one, ignore it, or just number two, play the how dare you, model. Like, okay, you've been using your child as a human shield, so just, double down, continue to use your child as a human shield, and, blame everybody else for calling you out on it. Those seem to me like the sensible types of things to do if you absolutely must have a PR moment over this. But no, it's like this bizarre combination of, she needs to be completely unbothered, right? Completely unbothered. I didn't lose. I gave him away. It's nothing like that. She has to, be right, obviously, and be virtuous. It's so that is very, Amber Light when
No,
I
it
see
is.
that. It's super Amber Heard, and everything we heard about, being unable to accept any sort of like, fault or criticism or anything like that. She's going to have to defend the indefensible, apparently. And that's what I think is going to be potentially the real breaking point for her, because you can't defend the indefensible. It becomes ridiculous, and everybody can see that. And it doesn't seem clear to me that she gets that we can all see through this ridiculous explanation.
No, it really doesn't. I think she has such a sense of like confidence in her own ability to pull the wool over people's eyes and charm people and say just the right word and everything. I'm curious, is she in any legal jeopardy because of this? Like, has she opened the door for Manson legally to do something, and what exactly?
I think it would be very difficult because, number one, she still has the litigation privilege she can hide behind, right? She put this in a court document, and that protects her in the state of California, as opposed to just telling her friends. So
Right.
they'd have to prove, that she was somehow involved in the leak, and that republication of it was separate enough from, the actual lawsuit for him to be able to sue on it. I don't know that he could meet that burden, because she'd say, I get to comment on my cases, and it's, my perspective on the custody battle or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, from a legal standpoint, I think that there's difficulties with that.
It's so frustrating that she can that she can commit so many egregious acts and just be, frankly, just such a pain in the ass in so many ways, and yet still there's this like legal wall here that just basically
Yeah.
it's do whatever.
Well, it is. It's crazy, but that's what I really, really love about this response that he's made. That he's come out swinging. I fucking love it, man. It's so good to see. And part of the reason why is because it really seems to signify a shift in strategy here, that Evan has, dominated the court of public opinion so far, and that's, this is now a pretty clear signal that Manson is not going to concede that ground anymore. He's going to go ahead and challenge her on that territory, and, potentially do pretty good with it. I mean, if this initial kind of volley here is any indication, it seems to be pretty successful to me. I mean, Jesus, a front page exclusive with Daily Mail, that's much bigger press than some rando thing in the Blast.
Right.
And I particularly like that too, because it gives him a lot of freedom to be able to go ahead and get the truth out there, because what's the alternative? Well, you can sue him for it, Evan. Sue him for defamation if he isn't lying. If he's lying, if he's not telling the truth. It looks like he is maybe potentially baiting her to do that. It keeps coming back to put up or shut up with Evan, but because of course, if she sues him over it, then the truth of the allegations becomes a key issue in the case, and that opens the door for him to then be able to litigate how full of crap she is about these accusations that she's been making.
Wouldn't you imagine, and I'm gonna ask you the question, I'm gonna grab my phone because I want to make sure I'm not missing any PayPal super chats, but wouldn't you imagine that Evan, as self-righteous as she is, and this is not a legal question, it's more of a personal question, I guess, personal observation or opinion, but don't you imagine, as self-righteous she is, that she has probably at times begged her attorneys to sue Manson? Like, I think she's probably the type that she's so delusional, or she's so confident in her ability to pull the wool over people's eyes, and she's probably so outraged at what Manson and other people have been doing. Don't you think at some point she's been like, I want to sue him, right? Or I want to sue her, or whatever. And the attorneys have had to say, no, come on now. You don't want to open that can of worms.
Yeah. No, I think that that's probably true. And if the story that came out today is any indication, it does seem like she is probably listening to her attorneys. I mean, the decision to settle the custody dispute, which is what it sounds like, happened from her kind of version of the telling. Amber Heard didn't settle, and we criticized for that, and she paid a very, very heavy price for not doing that. Evan Rachel Wood appears to have, seen the wisdom of recognizing that you need to stop digging, when you're in the hole. Now, she hasn't reached that point with Manson yet, but of course, the case hasn't gone into discovery. There's a whole lot that, hasn't been revealed yet.
Right.
So,
right. Oh, man. So do you think that there's been a lot that's been going on the last couple of weeks, and I wanted to actually talk about Johnny Depp just a bit. I don't think you've put out really anything since he was at Cannes, and I'm just curious, I think it's been a good couple of weeks for Manson bouncing off the terrible court ruling that he got. He came out on Instagram, came out on Twitter, said, I've got new music coming out for you to hear. Then this huge unforced error by Evan Rachel Wood has opened up for attention this whole thing that makes her look really bad ultimately. And so it's a great week or two for Manson. What do you think about what's been going on with Johnny Depp? Do you have any observations about Cannes or any of that?
I mean, it's a little surreal just seeing, continuing to see how out of touch the media is with the public sentiment on this case. Like to us, I feel like it seems so obvious. Maybe it's just because we lived through it in real time, and millions of people around the world, and everybody kind of shared this experience, except for the media that couldn't be bothered to actually watch the thing that they're reporting on. And so that's really, what jumped out at me about Cannes is how, he was so celebrated back by the public. I mean, it was a great thing to see him back in the spotlight. He had a massive amount of support, and of course the press just wants to keep, dragging it back to Amber Heard, dragging it back to the defamation, dragging it back to the UK case and stuff like that. And
his teeth. They just, I mean, I've never seen such outrage.
So petty. I mean, how petty can you be? It's absolutely insane.
Well, and what I love too is that, it's Cannes, it's a French film festival, and like, no offense, but like French and a lot of Europeans are kind of notorious for stained teeth and all the cigarettes and coffee and all that stuff. It's like, so it's just, it's so ridiculous. And they really are grasping at straws. And I think that like reading the reviews that had, some of the reviews that are negative of Jean du Barry, again, it's just so obvious the things that they're picking at, that they're politicized reviews, which we're seeing more and more now. Same thing with Johnny Depp's daughter and the, very scandalous, salacious TV show or HBO show she's in. And wow, I mean, I understand it's edgy. I understand there's a lot of sex and it's dark or whatever, but like people are just acting, some of these media people acting so outraged. It's just the same old story, the same old thing.
Well, it's just become so transparently performative, and that's what I think stands out, and that's it's been such a feature of the Johnny Depp coverage for so long, is this outrage. It's this manufactured outrage on behalf of, Amber Heard and this victim and so forth. And I say it's manufactured because, again, none of them bothered to watch the thing that they're reporting on. Like we all saw it.
Right.
And I don't know how to explain it. I don't know if it's like the dying gasps of an institution that used to be able to shape public opinion and, it is no longer able to do that. It's lost the trust, and so they just don't get it yet or something. I don't know. I don't know what's up with the media.
So I have a question from Lisa, one of my big supporters. Hi, Lisa. And so she wanted me to ask you, and this is a good question. This is something I was actually thinking about earlier, but it slipped my mind. What would a California judge, okay, how do I want to say this? So Lisa's question, let me put it how Lisa asked, and then I'm going to add on to it a bit for my own purposes. So Lisa asked, do we have any idea what a California judge would need to take a child from a mom? Mm-hmm. And I just want to follow up with that and say, okay, so you're familiar with what happened in Tennessee and all of that. We don't have access to the California documents, but knowing the courts as you do, what do you think has transpired with the courts and with this custody thing? And I think that's kind of what Lisa is asking here too, is like, what would be needed to take a child from a mom? What do you think ended up getting Evan Rachel Wood, so to speak?
Yeah, well, so in California, what you pretty much need to get a child away from a parent is you need abuse. You need proof of abuse. And there's actually a specific law in California. It's Family Code Section 3044. I learned about this, all of this stuff from covering the Alice Evans case, right? Another lunatic who's alienating children.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit. Go on, though.
Father. And so this California Family Code 3044 basically says, the court has to presume that a parent who has committed some type of domestic abuse against the child, family, spouse, ex-spouse, et cetera, is basically not a fit parent. It's not in their interest, the child's interest, for that parent to have any custody. And California also has revised its laws to define domestic abuse very, very broadly, which is part of the irony here. California now recognizes coercive control as domestic abuse. That's a position that Evan Rachel Wood advocated for in the state of Connecticut when they were considering a similar type of legislation there. So, coercive control can obviously include these types of manipulative and threatening types of behaviors. There's the indications of, some pretty disturbing psychological abuse of this child, not just the alienating from the father, but the, terrorizing the child with, this Brian is going to hurt him or is going to hurt mom or just whatever. I mean, it's very, very disturbing stuff to read this in the custody papers.
Yes.
So what it looks like to me, obviously not knowing for sure, but just drawing inferences from what I can see that I think are reasonable, is that basically Evan had to settle it. She didn't have any choice because they were going to be able to prove qualifying abuse. They were going to have to come up head first against this fraud with the FBI letter. I mean, that was her justification, her entire justification for why she needed to withhold this child from his father.
Right.
And so, if you're litigating it, that means you have a reason, right? So you need to stand behind that. But, it's already unraveling and becoming apparent that everything is not what it seems there. She could, I suppose, reverse course and admit it, but that's pretty dangerous, as well, admitting to a court that you committed a fraud.
Right.
But also it gives her nothing left to contest. It gives her no basis to justify what it is that she did. And, not just legally, but we see psychologically with Evan, she has to justify what she does. Everything is because she's a hero,
Right.
And so it looks to me like, litigation was really going to run into a wall with her. It was going to be a bad, bad scene. She was at risk of losing custody of the child altogether. She's at risk of God knows what kinds of consequences if this fraud with the FBI letter gets outed. And there's formal court findings and stuff having to deal with it. That really ups the ante. So it looks to me like she settled it, for the crumbs that she was able to get from Jamie Bell, whether it's literally shared custody or whether it's he has, primary physical custody and she has visitation, which is much more of what it sounds like to me. Not clear at all who's got legal custody of the children, right? They didn't put anything about that in the article. Legal custody has to do with the ability to make decisions on behalf of the child. So where they go to school, taking them to the doctor, making those types of decisions. That's another thing that gets allocated in a parenting plan. So that would lead me to suspect that Jamie Bell probably has legal custody, probably sole legal custody of the child as well. He's responsible for making those decisions. Of course, don't know, but I just assume, Evan would have told us if that, was not the case.
Right. Yeah. So I was wanting to look, I'm going to the original article because as I've said, the article doesn't tell us anything about the actual truth, but it does tell us what Evan is trying to get out there. And then there's a few selective quotes, from some of the court documents. But it says they agreed that their son, and then here's where the quotes come in, primarily will live with him in Los Angeles, and Wood shall have custody of Jack one extended weekend per month. So she from Friday after school or 10 a.m. And so it says, in other words, now we're out of the court documents, and this is what the article is saying. In other words, the young boy will stay with his dad most of the time in LA and travel to see his mom once a month. So to me, I mean, legally, that she lost primary or even shared custody, right? I mean, she's going to see him. A mom is going to see her son once a month, and the California courts thought this was okay. I mean, it does tell you something. And someone had asked in the comments earlier, why is it there are tons of people who are, emotionally abusive of their children or whatever, but they're still allowed to keep their kids. But I think what you're hitting at here, though, is that Evan Rachel Wood was so flagrant in her violations of the court orders, right? Like taking the kid out of state. Like,
yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think there's also just, it's different if you're going to force the court to deal with the situation. CPS is not going to get involved with things like emotional abuse, even though it technically falls under their remit, because it's just not a priority. They're going to focus on kids that are at risk of serious physical harm, is going to be their primary focus. So you're not going to lose your kid, to emotional abuse over something like that. But if you're going to go and play chicken in court and make a finding on whether you abused your child or not, then the court is going to make that finding. What do you want? So that's where she was headed, in this case, had she not, again, apparently been able to reach this agreement that both of them were willing to sign off on.
Seriously, no, I think.
And as far as the whole shared, lost custody, shared custody thing like that, it's such a semantic objection, so just to be ridiculous. I mean, yes, shared custody is typically going to be 50-50. It doesn't necessarily mean exactly, 12 hours of every day or whatever. Gets divided up, perfectly equally or whatever. But that's the general idea, is that you have equal parenting opportunities with the children. She has gone from having the kid pretty much exclusively, when she took him to Tennessee, to now having him approximately 10% of the time. So yeah, that's a loss. I don't really care what kind of word you want to use to characterize it. It is significantly less than she was exercising before. And, to the extent they had a 50-50 shared custody agreement before, it's substantially less than what they had agreed to previously. So yeah, it's clearly a loss.
Something else that Lisa asked was, how old is the child? Because if the child is 12 years or older, he can decide where he wants to go if the child is above the age of 5 or 6, the judge can take the child into chambers and ask the child, what does the child want? So I guess how I would turn this into my own question is, to what extent do you think what the child wanted figured into this? And do you think that the judge would have, do you think maybe the child could have expressed some issues with Evan Rachel Wood himself, or that the judge could have ascertained that Evan was telling the child some bad stuff? Like, will that happen normally? There's an interview with the child in this kind of a situation?
So the child was 7 years old when these declarations were being filed in 2021. So the child is, 9, maybe 10 years old at this point in time. Of course, we don't know when this custody agreement was reached. That didn't get reported. We don't know if this has been in place for a year or if this is something that they just did last week. So California does not favor bringing children into these types of decisions. They won't even allow a child to have the opportunity to testify if the child is less than 14 years old. It's generally disfavored anyway, because it's not a good position to put a kid in. It's an adversarial process between the parents. You don't stick the kids in the middle of that. So courts are very, very cautious about that. What they typically do, though, in these types of situations is they'll have parenting evaluators who come in and, look for things like alienation and stuff like that. And they also have therapists, people that work with the children, who can basically come in and sort of, represent the child's perspective in the court process without having to make the child do it directly. In some situations, if there's, a need for the child's position to be represented, they'll bring in what's called the guardian ad litem. It's basically somebody who is specifically appointed to be there to represent the best interests of the child. So all of those things can happen, but I think it's extremely unlikely that this child, given his age, personally participated in crafting this outcome with the court. I think you went mute on me. I can't hear you.
Sorry. I was
That's
going to
okay.
say, I think we're getting to the end. I'm going to wind it down because I'm getting tired. But is there
Yeah.
anything that you wanted to say that we haven't covered, or about any of this?
I mean, just it was a good day for Manson. It was a good day. It's you and I, we pinpointed the turning point in this case, I think, when the Bianca Klein lawsuit was filed, and finally Evan Rachel Wood got that nuclear weapon that she had been waiting for this whole time, the allegation of underage,
Yep.
Child sex abuse.
Yep.
And it went nowhere. Like,
Yep.
absolutely nobody cared. And that I think that should have been a warning sign. It should have been a warning sign that her credibility in the public was becoming stretched thin, and people just are not buying this anymore. There's too much that's not adding up. There's too many expectations that are not panning out. Where is this international criminal investigation going? You guys raided his house and took all of his computers, and there's still not a single charge against him for anything at all. She should have known better than to make this grievous mistake of thinking that she could get away with just such a transparent spin on a situation that she didn't have to address in the first place. So she's flailing. She's flailing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen.
She is, and it gives me hope that there will be more flails to come.
I mean, it seems like we're on that path.
Oh man, no, I totally agree with you. And what I've been thinking lately, and she's a perfect example of it. Evan Rachel Wood and Amber Heard is a perfect example of it. Is that their manipulative, crazy natures? They're really a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, they do allow them to manipulate people and to cause a lot of pain and to get a lot of what they want from other people. But it's the same craziness that makes them go too far. And so they can't, just like with Amber, and then also just like with Evan Rachel Wood, like they seem to, you know, like Celtic likes to say, they reach too far and they hit a wall finally where their BS just cannot push any further. So anyway,
Yeah.
everybody, thanks for joining me, and I'm sure it was the highlight of the show. Everybody, check out Andrea's channel. I put it up earlier, but it's I lost the link. No, there we go. Vanessa's got it. Check out Andrea's channel, and she's on Twitter and Instagram and all of that. And I thank you for joining me so late at night, and we will see you later, Andrea.
See ya.
All right, bye bye. Okay, everybody. So I'm gonna go ahead and wind it up there. I really appreciate you joining me. Sorry if it wasn't my best stream ever, but oh, and by the way, I did get that's just a second. I wanted to acknowledge some PayPals that I did get. Oh no, it's like my phone is like skitzing out. One of you was asking earlier if oh, okay, Diego. Yes, so I did end up getting it. Thank you so much. There's a little bit of a lag. And I won't use your last name because I don't know if I'm allowed to, but thank you, Shen, for yours and everybody else. And my links are below. And yeah, I'm gonna be churning out a lot more Manson content. I mean, to be honest with you all, I sort of thought that I had hit a point where things were gonna slow down and where I wouldn't have as much to talk about. But I mean, Evan Rachel Wood apparently just wants to help me out and give me more things to discuss. So thank you again. As always, I want to thank Evan Rachel Wood for giving me something to talk about on YouTube. So yeah, everybody, thanks so much to our fabulous mod, Vanessa. You know what? I didn't want to use a mod for so long because I thought it would somehow like be intrusive or something. And it's been great. And so thank you so much, Vanessa, for that. And then also AJ, who's modded for me before and is very supportive. Thank you so much. And yeah, so to everybody, great day for Marilyn Manson. It's great to know that Evan Rachel Wood is so frazzled that she's going to commit these major unforced errors and these major fuck ups. So yes to that. And I hope that we have many more in our future. All right, everybody. Good night.